Hi everyone. It's not uncommon for people to comment that they've never had a dog like a Greyhound before. They're a little bit different to other breeds, and so in this video I'd like to go through some of the things that they may be finding different when they come to you in retirement, things that you might not have encountered with other breeds of dogs. So in terms of their previous life experience, they're unlikely to have lived in a house unless they've been fostered, so everything about the house is going to be strange to them at first. They may not have a great deal of experience with other breeds, or with pedestrians or traffic, or even wide open spaces. They've also never lived on their own. They've typically been kennelled with other dogs close by, so just being on their own can be difficult for them. So it's not really like homing a dog that has grown up in a domestic environment in a house. So there's a lot of things that they're not used to. They may never have come across a television or a washing machine. They may not be used to mirrors or glass doors or anything reflective for that matter. They may not have been upstairs before. They may not have heard a vacuum cleaner, and have probably not walked on anything as slippery as a laminate floor. A stressed dog may growl, may snap, may freeze on walks, may stop eating, may have loose stools, or even be destructive. So there are a lot of ways in which their concerns will be expressed in their behaviour. And you may see some of these things when they first come home. They're also not used to having access to things that aren't intended for them. So they won't understand that your book on the coffee table is not for chewing, that the remote control is not a toy, and that your slippers are not part of their cuddly toy collection either. Now, a Greyhound is a sprinter. They're a retired athlete and may have some aches and pains left over from that athletic career that they've had. They may even have retired as a result of injury. And although they're built for speed, they're not built for duration. So certainly at first, they're unlikely to cope with long walks or busy days. They do need to sleep a lot, typically more than other breeds, and have short bursts of energy. So certainly at first, they're going to need a quiet life, and you may find they spend a lot of their day asleep. Most organisations are going to ask for you to have a secure garden if you have a garden, and that would need to have a fence of 5 feet, if not 6 feet, that's secure all the way round, including the gates. So this is to prevent the Greyhound escaping. They're not used to, say, you opening a door and expecting them to stay behind you when the postman delivers a parcel, for example. They're also not used to going outside to toilet because they haven't had the opportunity to do that. And this means that they often have very subtle signs that they need to toilet, and sometimes just looking confused, standing in the middle of the room, can be a sign that they need to go out. They won't necessarily go to the door and ask to be let out. And they may not also know how to play when they first arrive. So that could be something you're going to have to teach them, unlike a puppy that has probably had one-on-one interaction with a person since they were quite small and been encouraged to play. So with the Greyhound always having lived in a kennel, they are used to having a small space that is theirs, where they're not going to get interrupted or disturbed. Now, if when they move into your home, they decide the sofa is their safe space, that can cause problems with you perhaps ending up sitting around the table or even on the floor. So it's a good idea to instead create a safe, secure space that they can spend time when they don't want to be disturbed. So you could use a crate or a playpen, or just rearrange the furniture to create a cosy corner that is for the Greyhound alone. They've never been disturbed while they're sleeping, and so this can come to them as a bit of a surprise, and this is where we end up with cases of sleep startle. It's also worth thinking about what's happened to them before in terms of food. So in a kennel environment, food will have been brought in a bowl, put in the kennel, and the Greyhound will have been left until they've finished eating, and the bowl would then be taken away. So they're not used to people walking past them while they're eating, certainly not used to people touching their bowl or touching their food whilst they're eating. Now, this can mean that they might be a little bit possessive around their food, Or the opposite to this, if you have a nervous dog, is that they may not feel safe to eat whilst you're around. So I would have their food bowl somewhere quiet and out of the way where they can eat undisturbed and finish before you go to take that bowl away again. And the same may apply with treats. If they have a treat that's a little bit longer lasting, they may want to take that somewhere safe, perhaps into their safe space to eat rather than eat it with you. When they're eating their meals, then they would typically want to eat from a raised feeder with their long legs and long necks. It's better to have the bowl raised, and it can prevent injuries or damage to their shoulders or strain on their neck. When it comes to walking, it's good to use a muzzle, at least for the first few weeks, until you get to know how your greyhound is around other people, other dogs, and with you for that matter. So they are used to wearing muzzles. They wear muzzles during their racing career. It's not something that is strange to them, and it gives you some security until you get to know them better around all the things that they're getting to know as they are new in their home. So when you're walking, I would avoid narrow places like alleyways where you might end up in a position where you've got dogs on either side of you or more people on either side of you, then the dog becomes concerned. And also avoid open spaces with dogs that are off lead initially. When it comes to letting your greyhound off, this again is not something that they're likely to be used to. They typically have zero sense of recall, and so unless you take them to a secure field to let them off and you know that they're going to come back, then by and large they're going to be walking on a lead. And I always think that with a greyhound, if you do get one that ultimately will learn to recall and can be safely let off the lead, this is something of a privilege rather than something to be expected. They're not always suited to country walks. They don't necessarily like getting muddy, rummage around in rocks or streams, or getting over or under stiles. They might prefer to walk on pavements or some nice freshly cut grass rather than getting themselves all messed up. So you'll also need to think about where you walk rather than maybe going up hills or mountains for your weekends out. Some other quirks that you might have come across or maybe not have come across, as well as sleep startle, we have the greyhound scream of death, which tends to happen when you've maybe tweaked a toenail, pinched an ear, putting a collar on, something relatively minor. You'll get this sudden loud squeal, which can be alarming if you haven't heard it before. Zoomies is also a greyhound thing, charging up and down randomly around the garden or around the house for that matter. And this is something that can be a bit alarming if you haven't seen it before, suddenly having 30 kilos of dog doing 40 miles an hour up and down the garden or around the living room, but it does tend to be part and parcel of a happy hound. And when it comes to showing affection, their signs can be quite subtle at first. They may not really understand, when they don't know you very well, how to approach having affection, but they generally soon get the idea, and you'll find that they're offering you a paw of more to get you to carry on stroking their head or patting their tummy rather than letting you stop. They do tend to love other greyhounds, so it's great to get involved with greyhound activities so they can spend time meeting other greyhounds, socializing and going on walks with them. So look out for other greyhound activities in your area so you can join in as well when you get your own. It's also a great place to go to meet some dogs if you haven't got one yet, to help you get to know a bit more about the breed. So that's all for now. We'll be back again soon with more videos for you. Bye for now. Look out for new videos every Monday, and why not subscribe so you don't miss out.